Hi everyone, Bear from Bear Reads Books. You're going to figure this out pretty quickly, but this is a rant video about a book that has had some great reviews all over the place, and it seems to attract a lot of love everywhere it goes. And the book is Daisy Jones and the Six. Now, I picked this book up to read after a week of pretty heavy content reading, where I covered four books in a week, and this was my fifth, and I chose it specifically as something light and fun. Really, it's turned out to be something I hate with a passion. I want to try and explain why I dislike this book. I'm going to try not to head into rant territory and lose my temper about this book, but it really was something I did not enjoy at all. And if I can use the H word, I hated it. It was pus. Pus. So, background of the story. Daisy Jones and the Six is about a girl, a young woman called Daisy Jones, who is a singer, songwriter, and apparently one of the most beautiful women you're ever likely to meet. Struggling to get a leg up in the music industry. She joins a band called The Six, she's invited to join a band called The Six, who are already semi-popular and heading towards stardom. They think that, and the managers of the band think that having Daisy join her is going to add more life to the band and make them more popular and lead them on to more and more success. And they're right. And as a premise, that sounds great. And the way in which it's written was something that was appealing to me when I started, and that it is a fictional memoir or interview style. So every character in the book, which is a member of the band or a member of their management team or a member of their family, just says their piece on particular subjects and chronologically takes us through the history of the band and everything that happens to them, their highs, their lows, their relationships, their bust-ups, their issues with drugs and alcohol. So knowing that when I went in, I thought that sounds really a really interesting approach. What drove me to love it ended up being what drove me to hate it. And if you think of other books, what ties books together, in really dialogue-heavy books, what ties them together is where the author steps in and describes something, or tells us about the emotions, or about a landscape, or about anything at all to break up the dialogue. And there's nothing that does that in this book. It is an interview from page 1 to page whenever. And it was started off being quite interesting because every character has a different point of view and a different perspective on the same event. For instance, where the band has their first big fight about some sort of creative issue, everyone has a different perspective about how that went down, whose fault it was, who fixed it, who caused it, and that was really interesting. As the book goes on, when that's all you've got to hold on to, that becomes tiring and boring, and I hated that. So the thing that drove me to pick up this book is the thing that drove me to hate it. So in a regular book, as I said, it is the descriptions and the setting that pulls everything together, that ties little nice neat bows in things. And I'm not into books that tie neat bows in things generally, but this didn't even have a bow. They didn't even try to do their shoelaces up. The characters, again, started off very interesting. I thought a rock memoir about a band in the 70s would be really cool and would have lots of interesting stuff going on, and generally it does. But I just hate every single one of these characters. I've heard the author in interviews discuss that part of the reasons for writing this book was to create a strong female lead character. She wanted a female lead that young women could look up to, and I'm at a loss to think of which strong young women would look up to this woman, Daisy Jones. She is intelligent, I give her that. Beautiful, yes. Songwriter, singer. But she is so self-centered, so selfish, and she treats people so poorly. And she doesn't learn from her mistakes. And she just keeps continuing on, breaking everyone's hearts and destroying everything around her, which, as the premise of a book might sound like fun, but I really need my characters to grow beyond the destruction that is Daisy Jones. She doesn't seem remorseful for anything that she's done. It was a wild ride while it happened, and then it was over. And even to the point where they all make the decision to go their separate ways, and as a band story, you know this is going to happen. Of course, this is the 70s, there's lots of drugs, there's lots of sex, there's touring, and it's rock and roll, so you kind of know this is inevitable. So I'm not really spoiling anything, but when the band decides to bust up, they do it in the middle of a tour. So they don't care about their manager or the company that they're trying to make money for, or their band members or their fans. Or again, even though they do it for personal growth reasons, they're really doing it for their own self-serving purposes. They don't care about anybody. And I think also the author has billed this as a love story. And yes, while there is this sexual chemistry between Daisy and the guy that was in charge of Billy, the guy that was in charge of the Six before Daisy came along. So yes, there is this ongoing sexual chemistry that nothing ever really happens, and it's only Daisy's selfishness that causes her to dive in and profess her love to Billy anyway. And Billy is a recovering alcoholic and drug addict, and so he has his issues too, but he's working through those issues, and he's trying to be a good father and a good husband to his wife and family. And he just seems, all of these demons really manifest themselves in just an incredibly selfish, arrogant person. And I didn't like any of them. They were all vacuous, and I feel like if you're going to call Daisy Jones a strong female lead, then what you're telling young women is that it's okay, because if you're beautiful, you'll get whatever the hell you want anyway. And it's a terrible message, because she is such a horrible person, but she seems to get everything she wants because she's beautiful and she bats her eyelids, and money falls from the sky. It's money and men and drugs fall out of nowhere. And so she has no thought for those around her. She has a serious drug problem, whereas Billy is trying to overcome his serious drug problem. And all of these bits are entertaining in their own right, but there's nothing that really ties it together. And I wish I had better things to say about it. And I think the author would have been better served by telling us the story of a real rock band and calling it non-fiction, calling it a memoir of Fleetwood Mac. The author has also said that she modelled it very loosely on the story of Fleetwood Mac and a couple of other bands. I really would have preferred to read about Fleetwood Mac than to read about the fictional story of Daisy Jones and the band The Six. Because at least when you talk about a real band, you've got the music in your head. You know what it sounds like. So you can kind of dismiss the rock and roll antics, because you know how good the music is. So for instance, Fleetwood Mac, you can forget that they were dicks and just love their music anyway. Whereas in a book, you can't just love the music because there is no music. They're talking about making music, but you don't actually know whether you like the music or not to let everything else go. So all I can do as a music lover and a book lover is let all the rock and roll bullshit antics go, but that doesn't leave me with a love for the music. So all that's left is nothing, and I hate it. So I finished it. It was, because I don't give up books lightly, but I would only give it 2 stars, because all of the characters annoyed me. The style that drove me to the book is the same style that drove me away, and I wish I never picked it up. I do apologise to all those people that love it, and I've heard so many comments that say it was their book of 2019 so far, and I can see why. For me personally, it's not good. Oh yeah, I keep saying the author. The author is Taylor Jenkins Reid, who has a couple of other books under her belt. I think mostly engaging adult love stories, not romance, but love stories told with a modern twist. I think of other modern love stories that have worked or received high praise. And I don't read a great deal of love stories or romance fiction, but I think of Sally Rooney's Normal People, where the 2 characters that are in love and always have been and always will be, they're pretty screwed up. Like they do everything they can to break each other up, and yet somehow magically over time they keep meeting up and falling in love and falling out of love. And it seemed, as crazy as it was, it seemed really real. And you felt for them because the author did step in, and Sally Rooney does a great job in doing that. She just step in and tell us about how people feel in her own words. Whereas in Daisy Jones and the Six, we have to make up how they feel, because the only thing we have to go on is these characters talking to us as in an interview. Whereas emotions are so much more powerful in a book when the author lays it down for us. I don't get raw emotion and passion when I listen to an interview with anybody. What I do get when an author lays it down for me is all the description and all of the emotion that can be bottled up, and that's what authors do so well. And I'm sure Taylor Jenkins Reid can do that too. I mean, this is the genre that she loves writing in. I just think in Daisy Jones and the Six, she didn't do that, and that's the flaw. I wish I had better things to say for Daisy Jones and the Six. I went into it with a clear mind. I just wanted something a little bit lighter and more fun than I had read for the other books during my busy holiday week. It just wasn't that for me. So 2 stars, unfortunately. I won't be reading any more of Taylor Jenkins Reid. And hopefully my rant isn't too harsh. I would love to hear your thoughts on Daisy Jones and the Six, positive or negative. Have a crack at me if you want to. I understand people are passionate about books, and so am I, but sometimes that passion, you have to be negative about things, not just always loving things. So I hope you enjoyed my mini review and my rant. You won't get too many of these. I generally rate books really well. It's just this one did not resonate with me. So to all the fans out there, I do apologise, but I will see you again soon, and hopefully you stick around to my channel and listen to some other great reviews. Thanks guys, bye.